Most people are mentally conquered long before life even throws its first punch. They don't fall because life is unfair. They fall because their mind was never fortified to begin with. Not against failure, not against rejection, not against isolation, discomfort, or ridicule. They live in defense. They shrink in silence, and they call that survival. But here's the truth. If your mind is not trained, the world will train it for you. It will train you to think small, to conform, to obey fear, to bow to opinions, to believe in limitations that were handed to you before you had the power to refuse them. So let me ask you, what if the reason they doubt you, what if the reason they mock you is because they sense what you're becoming? What if they don't actually fear you now, but they fear what you'd become if you stopped playing small? Imagine the danger of a mind that doesn't flinch, that doesn't fold, that doesn't beg to be understood or accepted or liked. A mind so clear in its purpose, so relentless in its pursuit, so immune to distraction, that average people feel exposed just by being near it. That's what I'm building. That's who I've decided to become. And it starts in silence. It starts in discipline. It starts in the decision to stop letting the outside world define your inner one. You have to train your mind until doubt dies of starvation. You have to build it like armor layer by layer, until nothing petty, fake, or fearful can penetrate it. Because when the mind is untrained, you feel everything too deeply. Every comment becomes a cut. Every failure becomes a verdict. Every delay feels like defeat. But when the mind is fortified, and you don't react, you respond. And you respond with precision, clarity, and calm. You walk different. You speak different. You become the person that makes the room uncomfortable, not because you try to intimidate, but because your presence exposes everyone else's excuses. Because this world doesn't reward the smartest. It doesn't reward the loudest. It rewards the most unshakable, the ones who've trained their mind to stay calm under chaos, the ones who feel fear and move anyway, the ones who don't let emotions hijack their execution. That's what I've learned. Discipline isn't about controlling the world, it's about controlling yourself. It's about showing up without needing the weather to be right. It's about locking in your focus when the noise gets loud. It's about being so consistent that even when the fire goes out, you still walk through the dark. Because a weak mind craves comfort, but a strong mind creates clarity in the storm. Let me paint it clearly. A strong mind doesn't chase motivation. It builds momentum through motion. It doesn't beg for peace. It creates it through structure. That means you train your thoughts like a soldier. You don't entertain lies just because they feel familiar. You don't replay wounds like their identity. You replace "I can't" with "watch me." I'm tired with "it's already mine." This is hard with "that's exactly why I'm doing it." Because when the world sees someone who won't bend, who doesn't seek approval, who doesn't complain, who keeps building in silence while everyone else is screaming for attention, they get scared. They realize you're not competing. You're ascending. You don't move based on their timeline. You don't explain your standards. You don't ask for applause. Because here's the real truth. When your mind becomes a fortress, you don't need to prove your power. You simply walk in it. And most people, they won't understand you. They'll call it arrogance. They'll call it luck. They'll say, "You changed." Good. Let them. Because you did change. You stopped entertaining weakness. You stopped explaining your hunger. You stopped trying to fit into boxes built by people who never dared to build anything of their own. You became the storm, and they're still trying to figure out what happened. You want to know what really scares people? A person who no longer reacts. A person who doesn't flinch at failure, who doesn't chase applause, who doesn't collapse when they're misunderstood. That's mental power. Not the loud kind, not the desperate kind, but the calm, surgical, lethal kind. The kind of mind that can walk through chaos without losing focus. The kind that doesn't beg for peace, because it is peace. But let me be clear. You don't get there by accident. You build it brick by brick, thought by thought, moment by moment. You choose silence over reaction. You choose self-control over self-expression. You choose discipline even when no one will clap for it. And eventually, your emotional world starts to obey you. You stop getting pulled by other people's drama. You stop wasting energy trying to be understood. You stop explaining your value to people who never deserved your access in the first place. And you know what happens then? You get dangerous, because now you don't need anything. Not validation, not attention, not noise. You're no longer controlled by the world. You've commanded yourself. And when your thoughts obey you, when your mind doesn't betray you under pressure, you become someone who moves the world without being moved by it. That's the fear. That's why they watch you differently now. Because they can't get a reaction. They can't shake you. They can't reach you with the same games that used to work. Because you outgrew the level where they lived. And now you walk in rooms they're not built to enter. You've upgraded. And not externally, no. Internally, where it counts. Where it can't be faked, filtered, or forged. You've built a mind that can walk through fire and stay cold. That can be insulted and stay poised. That can fail, fall, and lose, and still rise with even more focus. That's power, and not the kind they can steal. Because once your mind is built like that, the outside world becomes a reflection, not a ruler. You don't need confidence. You walk in conviction. You don't need motivation. You have identity, and that identity is untouchable. You want to build a legacy? You want them to speak your name with respect when you're not in the room? Build your mind so strong that they can't ignore your presence, even in your silence. Because here's the truth. Money fades. Looks fade. Status fades. But the strength of your mind, that lives forever. It outlives trends. It outlasts envy. It becomes a force people remember not because you made noise, but because you moved with precision. High achievers, real leaders, legends, they all have one thing in common. Mental control, not over others, over themselves. They don't need a perfect schedule. They are the system. They don't need things to be easy. They're built for resistance. They don't need motivation. They have rituals. They don't chase emotion. They execute regardless of it. You think strength is how much you can lift? It's not. Strength is how little it takes to break your focus. And if the answer is still a bad mood, a text message, someone's opinion, or your own fear, then you haven't trained long enough. But that's okay, because today is the line between who you were and who you refuse to be again. The moment you stop building your life around how you feel and start building it around who you decide to be, from this point forward, you walk with something different, something rare, that quiet, unsettling, almost unexplainable power that makes people pause when you enter the room. That presence that says, I don't speak for attention, I move for impact. And when people ask how you did it, how you became so focused, so sharp, so untouchable, you won't give them a complicated answer. You'll say, I trained, I cut out the noise. I stopped giving energy to things that weakened me. And I built this mind piece by piece until I became someone I'm proud to live with. That's the win. Not applause, not praise, but peace the kind that can't be bought, borrowed, or broken. So if you're ready, build. Not next week, not tomorrow, Now, train your mind until doubt is a whisper, until fear has no authority, until your power becomes their warning sign, until they feel you before you speak. And when you're done watching this, don't just nod. Subscribe, not to this channel, to the standard, to the fire that's been waiting to burn again, to the version of you that doesn't explain anymore because they embody it. Click it, lock in, and show the world what it looks like when someone finally stops holding back.